And welcome to the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee meeting of Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. We will go first by identifying any possible conflicts of interest. The packet is in your possession. Are there any conflicts we need to be aware of? If not, we'll move on to the citizen comment. Are there any citizens who wish to make comments at this time? Second call, final call. We'll move on. Next up is the consent agenda for the minutes of April 5th, 2022, and the bills and payroll and the report of personnel actions. We found that there was a police officer listed as working for wastewater treatment, I believe. Was that a typo?
I didn't notice, sorry.
If you take a look at personnel.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I'll have to take a look back.
It's the last officer on the list.
Okay, I apologize for that if that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions about it? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Spiros, second by Handler to approve the consent agenda. There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, all the way down to item number 6, request to recommend council approval of budget resolution number 06, 2022, transferring $25,591 to internal service fund adopted 2022 budget for taxing system fund 220. Other financing sources, revenue. And Jennifer, you're going to walk us through this?
I am, thank you. Actually, I'm just noting also a correction that needs to be made. It's the taxi fund is a special revenue fund, not an internal service fund. And then going forward with that, the background is the city provides a shared ride service operated by Running, and most of the cost of that program is covered by federal grants, state grants, rider fares, and agency fees, which were implemented in 2019. Due to the pandemic, federal grants covered all of the costs of the program in 2020, except a small portion of January. This cost is the obligation of the city as its local share, and that amounts to the $25,991, as you see in your packet. This resolution doesn't cover the cost of the local ride in 2021, which the fund nearly broke even. I think it's less than $100 of that deficit. So we'll see that carry probably sometime at the end of this. I'll include it at the end of this coming year with whatever deficit may be shown for the end of 22, since it was such a small amount. With that, I would recommend approval of budget resolution 06-2022 to the Common Council Board.
Motion by Paschal, second by Spiros. Discussion? Deb.
Is the correct amount 25,991 or 25,591? We have two different figures.
Yes.
9.
Okay, so the correct number is 25,991?
Yes.
991, okay. Any other information?
Thank you.
If not, discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. And the next one is request to recommend council approval to set interest rate for 2022 special assessment installment payment. Again, presented by Jennifer.
Per the city's municipal code, special assessments can be levied in accordance with Wisconsin statute 66.0701. As part of that, we allow residents to pay their special assessments in annual installments, which are set by the governing body. The government, we set the payment structure as well as the interest rate. Common Council annually acts on resolutions concerning these specific special assessment projects, including the rate to be charged on the installment plans. Historically, the city has used the interest rate charged on our most recent borrowing. However, we have not yet completed our borrowing for 2022. And therefore, the rate I'm proposing for this year is based on the best estimate of the 2022 borrowing cost plus 2% to cover administrative costs. The recent rates are below. And With that, staff is recommending the interest rate be set at 5% for special assessments in 2022 who are using the installment plan for repayment.
What's your pleasure? Motion by Nick to approve the interest rates, correct? Right. Okay. Mr. Handler, the nod of the head will do. Thank you very much. And any further discussion? Yes.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, it's not, I guess, directly related to this, but somewhat related to this. These special assessments are then divvied out for residents to be paid over the long term. Do they get locked into that rate, or does
That
it
is the rate for the
fluctuate?
life of their specific assessment.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up is request to recommend council approval to transfer unused airport entitlement funds back to the Bureau of Aeronautics. Jeff, you want to walk us through this one?
The Wisconsin Bureau of Aeronautics contacted us and asked if we would release our 2018 entitlement funding and our 2019 entitlement funding. Usually we get $150,000 of entitlement funding every year. The reason they're asking us to release this is the 2018, we're not going to be able to spend quick enough, unfortunately. We do have it allocated to a project, but this project is going to be going past October. It's a airport master plan that we're working on, and they need to get it spent before a deadline. Otherwise, they lose that funding on their books down at the state. We do not physically have the funding here in the city. It's down on the books at the Bureau of Aeronautics. If we relinquish the 2018 funding, it's a little under $100,000 that we'll be giving up. There's always the possibility that if we have a project that we need entitlement funding in addition to what we already have in the future, we could ask the Bureau for help in another airport. If they're not using their entitlement funding, the Bureau would approach them, because this is what's happening is the Bureau is going to use the entitlement funding, the 2018, on another project at another airport. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get reimbursed right now for the 2018 funding. The 2019 funding, however, they have agreed to reimburse us with CARES funding at 100%. So we will be getting $150,000 without having to come up with a share for that.
Okay. The part of it, the good news of the whole thing is that we would not, if they reimburse us for the CARES funding, then the local share of 20% goes away. And that saves us about 7,000 something, I think.
The local share would be around 5% of 150,000, so close to 7,000, yeah.
So basically we can save $7,000.
And of course, that 2019 funding, that would be allocated towards the master plan that we're presently going through with the Wisconsin Bureau of Aeronautics, developing at the moment.
Okay. I always hate to give back money, but again, they did that for us once, I think.
That is correct. When we constructed the terminal building, we didn't have enough funding, and they reached out to some of the other airports that weren't going to be utilizing their entitlement funding, and we got funding back from them. So this is one of the few pots down at the Bureau that they kind of go and grab from different airports if they need it, especially if the airports aren't using it. In this case, we were using it, but there's deadlines on when it has to be used up. And unfortunately, this project that we're going in right now, the master plan, is not going to be completed by the time the deadline comes for the 2018 funding to be used up.
Thank you. Any questions, or what's your wishes? So we don't have a motion on the floor. Anybody want to make a motion? Okay, motion by Handler to approve. Is there a second? Second by Spiros. Discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, there's some documents that have to be signed by the mayor and...
That is correct. Once this is approved then by the Common Council, then a mayor or city administrator and a clerk would have some documents to sign that we'd have to return to the Bureau of Aeronautics to release the funds.
Okay,
on the books down there. Mhm.
okay, so you'll take care of getting those funds to the right people?
Yep,
right?
I'll follow through and make sure everything's documented and signed.
All right, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, okay, we already voted on that, so we're all done. Okay, request to recommend council authorization to refill 2 vacant firefighter positions. Chief? I'm getting used to saying chief.
Good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you. With the retirement of Chief Owen on December 31st of 21 and the subsequent internal promotions to refill officer positions, we have 1 immediate opening for firefighter paramedic. Additionally, on March 22nd, we received a memorandum from one of our other firefighter paramedics that he's going to be retiring on May 20th of 2022. Approval to forward the request before this body to fill these 2 positions was granted at the Police and Fire Commission on April 13th of 22. Both of these positions are budgeted for in 2022. So with that, I'm asking for approval to fill 1 firefighter paramedic position as soon as possible and a 2nd firefighter paramedic position after May 20th of 2022, pending council approval, of course. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
What's your wishes? Rebecca? Move to approve the hiring, second by Wetzel. Just one, you know, I was under the impression that as long as the money was budgeted, as long as it was just a replacement position, that the Fire and Police Commission itself just had the authority to do this without coming to us. Is that true, or what makes it come to us? Just the money part of it? Steve?
Yeah, if you remember, the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee about 3 years ago effectively mandated that all replacement of any positions, including police, fire, and library, come before this body because of the financial budgetary impact that we were dealing with at that time with the structural budget deficit. And that was recently upheld, I think, by a decision made by this committee about 4 months ago.
Yeah, I think maybe we should look at that again, because, you know, I don't know. You have something to say?
I'm just saying, we just looked at it a couple months ago, and I think
And
you
you
were
say
one of the people that argued
you
against
think
it.
the financial situation is such that we need to carry on?
I didn't agree with that, but the rest of the committee voted.
Whittle?
Thank you. Regarding that, I believe I'm sort of in the same camp that Mr. Wagner is, in that with police and fire being overseen by a separate commission that has its own powers, that those 2 areas would be sort of exempt from the overview of us, but the remaining staff within the city would be reviewed by this committee.
I think one of the things that occurred to me was back years ago, some number of years ago, we had a discussion about this, and the chiefs of both departments at that time felt it was a courtesy to come to the council and do that. And I figured if they want, you know, the only reason that we would really have to do this is they were adding another officer or raising or adding another level of pay that wasn't budgeted for. Those are the only other reasons that would come to us, because we're only concerned about the finance. But we'll take, you know, we'll proceed on as the council wishes until they decide it's something different, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've already voted on that? Or no, we didn't call the vote. We have a motion and a second, but we don't have the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And chief of police, same game.
As always, Chief Floody has stolen my thunder. I stand before you in the same shoes as Chief Floody. I was approved to approach the board on April 13th to fill a vacancy that occurred with my promotion from within the ranks. This would bring our staffing up to what it was before. It's a budgeted amount, our budgeted amount of people. So I would seek approval from this board to fill that vacancy.
Motion by Spiro, second by Paschal. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, item number 11. Request to recommend council approval of new 2-year agreement for city attorney services with Wolfgram, Gamoki, and Hutchinson. And Deb, or Steve, you've got this.
I got it. Thank you. 2 weeks ago, this body decided not to pursue an RFP, request for proposals for city attorney services. You had done so a few years back and got 2 proposals, decided to stay with Wolfgram, Gamoki, and Hutchinson, and had continued that in 2019. After discussing it, this body felt that it was appropriate to try and get a proposal from Attorney Wolfgram and continue with their services. They've done a very high-quality job for the city in some difficult times, especially in the last few years. So we're grateful for that. I have since that time secured a proposal from the city attorney's office with no further changes in terms except for the rate. They're looking for an increase for the 2023 and 2024, those 2 years, in a 2-year agreement from 185 per hour to 200 per hour. It does seem reasonable, being that he was at 185 an hour for both 2021 and 2022. And given that his normal billing rate is way above that, and if you recall, the other proposal we got a few years ago was in the 300 plus. So I would recommend that the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee recommend council approval of the proposed agreement with Wolfgram, Gamoki, and Hutchinson for the 2-year period, 2023 to 2024.
Okay, I think that was Witzel first and Spiro second. Okay, discussion? If not, are you ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Items for future agendas. Anybody got anything? Nick? Anybody down there? Okay. And so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Rebecca, Witzel, the first and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.